This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to do a smackdown between the iPhone 5 and the Samsung Galaxy S4. Well, this is probably going to get you fanboys a little upset, going to get your knickers in a twist, but we're going to try to be unbiased. We're going to try to look at the features on each, and honestly, this is not going to be a very long video because I think there's some really important differences you need to look at. You can look at specs all day, all night, and it's really going to come down to something not so much based on specs. So here we are, two flagship phones from two huge manufacturers who would, well, like to kick each other's butts in the marketplace. Honestly, you know that, I know that. Both of them are available in your choice of black or white. Look at the difference in size. First important point right here. Like I said, we're not going to beat this to death with specs. It's not as meaningful in this case, I don't think. First off, interesting thing is a lot of people say they like their iPhone because they like the small size. They just won't carry anything huge. Conversely, there are people who, once they start using the big display, this lovely 5-inch display right here, or even something bigger, the Samsung Galaxy Note 2 with the 5.5-inch display. But anyway, you get the idea. All the top Android phones have big displays because a lot of people also like really big displays. It's awesome. When you're watching video, it's like having your own personal little TV in your pocket. So keep that in mind. What do you want? Do you want portability? Do you want something really easy to hold? Do you have small hands? Are you perhaps your average sized woman, which I am not. I am much taller than the average sized woman, so I can carry either of these pretty easily. If you want the small size, it's the iPhone. If you want the big cinematic experience on your screen and easier to read text in web pages without zooming, it's the Samsung Galaxy S4. The next thing is, well, some of you have been using iPhones for a while and you're really into that stylish, high-quality look of a device. Obviously, the iPhone 5 has that nice, beautiful glass and anodized aluminum look. Whether you get the black or whether you get the white with the silver, that's what you're getting. In fact, I would say that the HTC One really is the phone that may be designed to convert iPhone users over more readily because you still get that nice, beautiful anodized aluminum look right here. Here's the HTC One, for example, just to bring that in for a minute. And a very simplified UI relative to some of the UI experiences on Android, particularly TouchWiz. But not to go too far off on a tangent, what you've got there is nice, expensive, ooh, I got a nice piece of hardware in my pocket. And then you have the Samsung Galaxy S4, which I think is actually a very attractively designed phone, and it's very thin, too. But it is made of polycarbonate plastic. And so for you people who say, man, I can't live with anything but metal, well, there, that is right there. No matter what you make the Galaxy S4 out of, if you want a metal phone, it probably won't make you happy. It's not to say it's not a very nice looking phone and not a well-made phone, because it is all of those things. It's just not metal. While we're moving these phones around, you can see the viewing angles on both of them are excellent, though they use quite different display technologies. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has a Super AMOLED display. That's Samsung's technology. 1920 by 1080, full HD, just like your HD TV. Pretty darn impressive. That has a pixel density of 441 ppi. The Retina display in the iPhone, that's the one that started this whole craze towards high pixel density displays on smartphones. 1136 by 640 for resolution, but that's in 4 inches, so considerably smaller. Pixel density there is 326 ppi. So yes, it is lower, considerably lower than the Samsung Galaxy S4. You specs people are going to say, woohoo, Samsung Galaxy S4 for the win. But keep in mind that the human eye, according to eye doctors, cannot really resolve and see much beyond when you go to the 330s to the 350s. If you increase pixel density beyond that, even at 7 inches away, you're not going to see the dots on either of these. But where the Samsung Galaxy display pulls ahead, again, is for the size and for the greater resolution. It's just a lovely experience. If you're watching a movie, it's also that nice widescreen effect right there. Of course, Apple has gone towards the taller and narrower screens too. But if I was going to be watching a lot of movies or viewing a lot of web pages, Samsung Galaxy S4 would be my pick because of that big display. Well, let's take a look at some content to see how that looks. So here you have our Mobile Tech Review homepage, both obviously viewed in portrait mode right here. And you can see the text is more readable on the get-go on the larger screen. No kidding, right? For those of you who are really getting tired of pinch zooming in on all sorts of things, double tapping or using reading mode to see things, though, that's important. In terms of speed, well, they're both very fast and responsive. And let's check them out in landscape mode now. Scroll this guy back down there so you see about the same stuff. So you can see the difference right there. Which do you like better? Probably most people are going to say they like the experience better on the bigger display, but again, that also comes down to pocketability. How large a phone are you willing to carry in order to have that viewing experience? In terms of colors, both have lovely colors. Super AMOLED is hyper-saturated versus the IPS LCD on the iPhone. The iPhone's a bit more color accurate, but a lot of people have grown to really love those super duper colors on Samsung Galaxy phones with Super AMOLED displays. When you start to move off axis, a Super AMOLED display, generally what's going to change is the brightness more than the colors. With the IPS display, the colors change. Off angle, the whites start to look a little pink. In either case, you have very wide viewing angles. One place where the iPhone does pull ahead, though, is in outdoor viewability. Because IPS displays typically get whiter than Super AMOLED displays because they use less power. It's most likely the reason why manufacturers are doing it that way. The iPhone 5 is one of the most viewable phones outdoors. While the Samsung Galaxy S4 shows great improvement over the Galaxy S3 and a little bit of an improvement over the Galaxy Note 2, it's still somewhat difficult to see outdoors. So if you use your phone outside all the time, you're probably going to prefer something with an IPS display like the iPhone. Likewise, if you're taking a lot of pictures, you can see what you're taking a picture of better on the iPhone because, well, the screen is more viewable. After size of the phone, which size you prefer, and which display experience you prefer, the next most important thing is the operating system. And really, you can look at specs till the cows come home. You can look at every single feature on this. You can say, I like a big display, a small display. But some people's love for an operating system is pretty much immutable, and you know what I mean. You've seen the fanboy wars that go on. And even for people who aren't that emotionally invested in their operating system, some people just have grown accustomed to one thing or prefer one thing over another. Now, in this view right here, we're in the launcher palette for the Galaxy phone, for Android right there. They look pretty similar, don't they? Well, that is your permanent home view on the iPhone. It's pretty much foolproof. It's very simple. Great for older folks maybe who aren't very familiar with technology, anybody who's not too familiar with technology. It's hard to get confused here. Now with the Samsung, when you go to the home screen, you have what is the beauty of Android as well. You have widgets here, you have shortcut icons, you have all sorts of stuff. I personally admit that I love this. I have both an iPhone 5 and Android phones, but I do like the customizability and the home screens and what you can do here with getting information at your fingertips and making the phone yours. But it's going to be a matter of personal preference. In fact, one of our editors who specializes in doing iOS accessory and software reviews, who's a pretty open-minded fellow, he's been using the iPhone for years and iPads, and he said, you know, I really want that big display. I'm going to try out the HTC One. And it didn't work out for him because he likes the Streamline OS better. That's him. A lot of you may be just the same way, though. Once you get used to this, you may say, this is exactly what I like. I don't want to futz with widgets. I don't want to do anything. I'm certainly not going to load custom ROMs. So you know who you are. If you're the kind of person who wants customizability, you're pretty familiar with technology, you like a phone where there's stuff to learn and all sorts of ways you can customize it for your very own, Samsung Galaxy S4. Definitely the winner. I wouldn't say it's a newbie phone by any means because it has so many features. It might confuse some very much beginners using phones. And this guy here is for somebody who just wants it to work. Straightforward, simplicity, not much to worry about, not much to have to change. So it really depends on which person you are and what it is you prefer. I will mention, however, that Samsung has added an easy mode. We've seen LG do this, a couple of manufacturers who have some of the more complex overlays or who are making introductory smartphones that are usually priced pretty low, and that's usually your first-time smartphone buyer who's not familiar with all these features. So surprised to see it on the Galaxy S4. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're getting this for a newbie, the Samsung Galaxy S4, there is a simplified UI mode that makes things maybe a little more streamlined or single-purpose at first for folks who aren't used to all the other stuff that this phone can do. Both of these guys have a mono speaker. iPhone speaker is down here. Samsung Galaxy S4 is on the back panel right there. You know, to me, they sound pretty much about the same in terms of quality and in terms of volume. They're not bad as phones go. They sound like phones. The HTC One is the one with those stereo speakers that sound pretty awesome. But overall, among phones, both of these are pretty darn good sounding. They both have a GPS with GLONASS. They both have Wi-Fi 802.11bgn. Note that the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a new Wi-Fi AC. Probably doesn't matter to a lot of you folks yet. That's a new standard. It's not being much used, but if you know what it means, you might be excited by it. Both have Bluetooth 4.0. No NFC on the iPhone. Apple says that there's no point to having NFC yet. There is NFC on the Samsung. Samsung has an IR remote for TV control with a TV guide in it. iPhone does not have that. I kind of really like that feature, actually. You got your own universal remote there with a TV programming guide built right in. Now with the iPhone, there are third-party accessories you can buy, plug into the jack, and you can actually turn these guides into AV remotes as well. But out of the box, Samsung already has it. Now in terms of horsepower, this one becomes somewhat less meaningful to actually compare because they're running different operating systems with different requirements, but just by For pure specs, Galaxy S4 has a 1.9 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 CPU with Adreno 320 graphics. There is also an Exynos Octa version. Here in the US, we get the Qualcomm 600, which is an awesome CPU, very fast. In fact, that's clocked a little higher than the few other Android phones that have that same CPU. iPhone 5 has a dual-core A6, which is an ARM-compatible 1.3 gigahertz CPU with 3-core PowerVR SGX 543 MP3 graphics. What does that mean? In the end, they're both very fast and responsive phones. The iPhone has become kind of the gold standard for phones that don't lag, that are always pretty quick. And I have to say, the iPhone is very responsive. I mean, it's always, the UI is very well tuned. It always looks good. But the Samsung Galaxy S4 has not lagged for me. I know some people have said they see lag. So far, I have not been able to get it to do that. There's that. Samsung Galaxy S4 does have much more complicated software. There is more potential for it to lag, say if there's some conflicts with third-party software you download from Google Play. There aren't a whole lot of cross-platform benchmarks that we can run on these guys, but I can tell you we got Geekbench 2, and the Samsung Galaxy S4 scores 3159, which is about the highest number we've ever seen from a smartphone yet on Geekbench 2. The iPhone 5 scored 1643, a lot lower. It's funny because the iPhone 5 used to be one of the fastest phones on Geekbench, but you can see that there's more raw processing power in the Samsung. Does that mean that the Samsung is a faster behaving phone? Honestly, no, it doesn't. The overhead of Samsung software and of Android are such that processing power is well utilized there, shall we say. Also, you can only demand so much. You can put a Cray supercomputer inside of one of these guys, and the software can only make it run so fast because the UI is set to run animations at a certain speed, so on. Games are only so demanding, and that's what it is. Honestly, both of these are more than fast enough to do whatever you need. When it comes to SunSpider, which measures JavaScript performance for web pages, 935 for the iPhone 5. Again, it had been one of the very fastest. Samsung scores a win with 826. Those are both very good numbers. Lower numbers are better with that test. And compared to older versions of the iPhone that were closer to 2000 and flagship Android phones, say the Galaxy S3 era, where closer to 2000 was the standard, you're looking at really fast phones again here. Phone calls, these are both excellent voice phones, really nice call quality, good and clear, both incoming and outgoing voice. Both work nicely with Bluetooth headsets and car kits. And in terms of data speeds, you can see our results here. These give you an idea of what we're getting on both of these phones. These both happen to be on LTE on AT&T's network here in the Dallas area, where we get pretty good speeds. Occasional blip you get right there, what we have with the iPhone, but in general, we're looking at pretty comparable speeds here for data speeds. Let's take a look at cameras, because I think that this is an overarching point of interest for most everybody. iPhone 5 has a 1.2 megapixel front camera. Galaxy S4 has a 2 megapixel front camera, so you get a little higher resolution on the Galaxy. Honestly, they both look quite nice for video chat. You're not going to really feel unhappy with either of them. If you take a look at the iPhone 5, always a paragon of simplicity. There's really not much going on here in the way of settings. Change your front and back camera, change your flash control right here, movie mode, photo mode, your photo button. And in the middle here we have options where you can choose whether you want a grid shown, you can turn HDR on and off, and you can switch to panorama mode. Take a picture, very quick. Always very quick. Pretty impressive with that. Switch to video. Nice and smooth. We can tap to focus at any time that we want. And if you want to take a photo while shooting a video, you can. Now we're recording video, and you just hit the little camera button right there, and it takes a picture silently for us. You know, we've seen a lot of camera phones, some of them even at higher megapixel resolution, and the iPhone 5 is still one of the best camera phones. It just really does a great job of capturing color, contrast, getting you bright shots, does pretty well at night. So it's hard to fault it, even if it's only 8 megapixels. And here we have the Galaxy S4, 13 megapixels. Are more megapixels always better? No, but in the case of the Galaxy S4, yes, really, really awesome pictures. Now notice the focusing is sometimes, it takes a little break there once in a while. It doesn't think about focusing. That's the only thing I haven't really liked about this camera so far, is that I often have to tap to focus. It doesn't figure it out for me. You get all sorts of cool modes here, and you know, Samsung throws a lot of software at a phone, and some of it's a bit overload, but I think that this is very intuitive. One simple mode button, and then you have this easy-to-use carousel that tells you by name, by description, and by visual example what they all do. And there's a lot of really great effects right here that are an awful lot of fun. And some of them are just useful, like sports mode and night mode. Of course, auto mode, which does a good job most of the time, it has face detection, all that stuff. And if we want, see, we've lost focus again. If we want to take a picture, we tap it like that. Not quite as fast to focus, you see, before it takes that picture. I hope a firmware update helps with that. And now we record a video, and of course you can take pictures while it's recording video as well. And this is HDR mode for photos too, but not for video. And for those of you who love all sorts of photo settings, you camera buffs, there's more over here. Burst shot, face detection, metering mode, ISO, all of that kind of stuff. Settings also for your video shooting, center weighted metering, matrix metering, spot metering. A lot of stuff to play with there. And then last but not least, there's the function. Tap that button right there, and you can take a little picture in a picture using the front camera and the back camera, so you can superimpose yourself in the shot that you take. So I have to say, overall, I think that this camera wins, other than focusing speed and behavior, which is a little bit iffy on the Galaxy S4, particularly if you're close to something as we are right now, or if the light is low. Next, there's voice command. You've got Siri on the iPhone. I think you all know about Siri right now, everybody's favorite personal assistant, who does a really pretty good job overall with natural language queries for a lot of things. I quite enjoy using it. Samsung as ever has S-Voice. It's never been very good. I know even you Samsung lovers, you'll admit it. It's never been that good. Happily, Google works pretty well for things like text input, for search commands, all that kind of thing. And they fight back with Google Now integration. Of course, you can download the latest Google for iOS, too, and get a lot of the Google Now goodness. But I really love the way it integrates here in Android, and you can have it actually pick up stuff from your calendar, like your next flight and all that kind of stuff. So your flight information comes up here and all that. When it comes to battery life, well, obviously, first thing, as we mentioned, one has a battery that's sealed inside, one doesn't. But beyond that, I find that they actually both have pretty good battery life for high-end smartphones. The iPhone 5 has an advantage. It has a smaller display, it has a lower power CPU. It lasts me about 45 minutes to an hour longer of actual use time so far in our tests. I've had the Galaxy S4 for a little bit over a week, and that's how it's been running so far. I have no problem making it through the day with the Galaxy S4, but the iPhone 5 usually goes through the day and then into the next morning before I have to plug it in. That's with average use. Again, actual use time differences of 45 minutes to an hour. Now, it used to be the difference in the number of apps available was a real issue between iOS and Android. Not anymore. Pretty much everything you're going to find on the Apple Store is going to be available on Google Play in terms of applications. Even games have really blossomed lately. A lot of excellent 3D games on Android. Another thing is still sometimes the Android release of a really hot game lags behind the release of a game for the Apple ecosystem, but still, there are still more games, I would say, for the iPhone 5, but there's enough to keep you really entertained and busy, from casual games to really cutting-edge 3D games on both of these. And these are both excellent 3D gamers. Obviously, they both have quite a lot of horsepower, the Samsung having even more, but the iPhone 5 is about as fluid as you could ever hope for playing games, too, just like the Samsung. So both good for apps, both good for games in that respect. For those of you who go through a lot of games, really hardcore gaming, though, you're still going to find a bigger selection for the iPhone 5. Now, while I still think that the OS you prefer, the size that you prefer, are going to be really more important in the end for a lot of people, I'm going to mention the fact that the iPhone uses, as ever, the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. You interact with your finger. It's very straightforward. You have a grid of icons. Samsung goes to the max, even compared to other Android manufacturers. And we have Air View. We have Air Gesture. You can wave at the phone and have it scroll a page. You don't even have to touch it. You can hover over your finger in certain applications only and have it do a blown up view for a minute so you can get a preview of an email message. There are apps and features up the wazoo there that can keep you pretty entertained. Now, some of them work, some of them don't work so well. There's one, Smart Scroll, where it actually watches your eyes, and as your eyes go down to the bottom of the page, it's going to try to scroll the page for you. Not so good. But features like Smart Stay, as long as you're looking at the phone, it won't turn the screen off. Love that. Last super important point right here, the iPhone has a sealed unibody design. There is no micro SD card slot. You cannot take the battery out. Now, you can use external battery packs that plug into the lightning port, so you can charge this guy on the go. You're not totally hosed if you run out of battery power on the road, as long as you have an external charging supply, a battery pack or something like that. Samsung always goes, haha, we have the removable door on the back. Yank that plastic off. There's our SIM card slot. There's our micro SD card slot. There's our removable battery. So for those of you who rather swap batteries in the field and need to expand your storage, which is very useful for music and for videos, your documents, but not for installing applications because Android 4 and up doesn't let you put applications on an SD card, that's great. To start with, the Samsung Galaxy S4 is available with 16 gigs of storage. That's the one that's on the market right now everywhere. Samsung says there will be a 32 gig version. Don't know when. Right now for $199 with contract, depends on your carrier what that pricing is like, but around $199 you're getting the 16 gig model of this. Our friend the iPhone here starts at $199 as well for the 16 gig. It's also available in 32 and 64 gig capacities. It's important to offer more capacities when you don't have removable storage slot there. So that's the iPhone 5 versus the Samsung Galaxy S4, available on many carriers, both of these phones starting about the same price point, and hopefully now you have a better idea of which one's for you. They're both awesome phones, honestly. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video reviews of these phones, read our written reviews on Mobile Tech Review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.